You'd think football contracts are usually pretty boring, dry, standard and full of legal jargon, but apparently they're not nearly as boring as you might expect. One footballer got banned from going to space, while another demanded a house for every year on his contract, but got something different instead, something you wouldn't expect. So in this video, we're counting down some of football's weirdest contract clauses, and trust me, they only get stranger as we go along. Let's start with Dennis Bergkamp, one of the classiest players to ever step foot on a football pitch. We all remember that goal against Leicester in 1997, right? And what about the one against Newcastle, where he spun the defender and calmly tucked it into the bottom corner? But there was a catch with Bergkamp. He was absolutely terrified of flying, like genuinely terrified. He suffered from aviophobia. Arsenal knew this when they signed him, and they accepted it. So it was written into his contract that whenever the team flew to Europe, Bergkamp could either travel by train or just stay at home. Yes, it meant he missed a few Champions League matches, but when he did play, it was more than worth it. On paper, this clause might look strange, but it was actually quite wholesome. Arsenal were basically saying, "You're worth it, we'll make this work." And it shows that when a player asks for something unusual, as long as it makes sense, clubs will often just go along with it. But sometimes, those unusual personal requests aren't even for the player himself. A perfect example is Rolf Christel Guillermin, a Congolese midfielder who joined Eintracht Frankfurt in the early 2000s. When he moved to Germany, his wife struggled to settle into a new country, language and culture. So, to help her feel more at home, he asked the club to include something very specific in his contract. Cooking lessons. Yes, not a car, not a signing bonus, cooking lessons. And to be fair, it seemed like it worked, because Guillermin ended up playing in Germany for over 15 years. But footballers being footballers, not every request was quite that innocent. Some players had hobbies that clubs felt were just too risky. Stig Inge Bjørnebye, Liverpool's Norwegian fullback from 1992 to 2000, is a great example. He came from a family of ski jumpers. His dad even competed at the Olympics, and Liverpool looked at that and thought, yeah, absolutely not. So they straight up banned him from skiing altogether. Moving on to a more recent Liverpool player. When Liverpool signed Bobby Firmino in 2015, reports claimed that his £83 million release clause could be activated by any club except Arsenal. Why Arsenal, I hear you ask? To understand that, we need to rewind 2 years to an incident that annoyed Liverpool so much it made their owner John W. Henry tweet about it. In 2013, Arsenal were keen on signing Luis Suarez after he scored 23 goals the season before. They believed he had a £40 million buyout clause that would force Liverpool to sell if it was matched. But in reality, Liverpool only had to inform Suarez of any bid over £40 million, not accept it. Arsenal didn't realise that, and famously bid £40 million plus £1. That extra pound quickly became one of football's pettiest memes, and understandably Liverpool were pretty annoyed, which is why they made sure Arsenal were the only club banned from activating Firmino's release clause. Other clubs quickly picked up on this idea too. Over in Italy, Paul Pogba's Juventus contract reportedly included a clause that only applied if Paris Saint-Germain tried to sign him. Any other club could buy him for around £70 million, but if PSG wanted him, it would cost them an extra £8 million. Would that have stopped PSG? Probably not, but these clauses started feeling less like financial protection and more like personal messages, rivalries moving from the pitch straight into the paperwork. But if you think that's obsessive, wait until you hear this next one. Because Real Betis took things even further. When they signed Rafael van der Vaart on a free transfer in 2015, local reports claimed he agreed to never wear red football boots. Sounds random until you realise red is the colour of Sevilla, Betis' city rivals. And why would van der Vaart agree to that? Well, apparently he was paid very nicely for it, around €114,000 a year. Imagine being paid 6 figures just to avoid a colour. Honestly, I wouldn't mind either. But now, let's turn things up another notch, because the next few clauses are properly juicy. Take Mario Balotelli's Liverpool contract for example. It included a £1 million signing bonus simply for behaving himself. All he had to do was avoid getting sent off 3 times for violent conduct, not insult referees, and not spit at anyone. That's it. Do the bare minimum, act like a decent human being, and here's £1 million. Sounds easy, right? Well, you'd be wrong. Balotelli being Balotelli, he didn't meet the criteria and he didn't get the bonus. Incredible. And around that same time, one of football's favourite rumours started doing the rounds. That Luis Suarez, who we mentioned earlier, had a no-biting clause in his contract. After biting Otman Bakal at Ajax, Branislav Ivanovic at Liverpool, and then Giorgio Chiellini at the 2014 World Cup, it's fair to say that Suarez had built himself a bit of a reputation. So when Barcelona signed him, stories spread that this contract included a special clause banning him from biting opponents, or else he'd face financial penalties. Barcelona's president, Josep Bartomeu, later denied it, saying, "No, we didn't include a biting clause, and if the clause did exist, we wouldn't say it, but it doesn't exist." Sure, if you say so. Because if anyone was ever going to have that clause, it was Suarez. Now, let's move on to another player famous for his iconic teeth, Ronaldinho. We all remember how he entertained the football world during his time at Barcelona, but after his European adventures, he joined Flamengo, and reports claimed his contract included a nightclub clause, allowing him 2 nights out per week. Yes, the club officially allowed him to go partying twice a week with no consequences. Flamengo knew exactly what they were getting, but they wanted his star power badly enough to agree. They were probably just happy they managed to limit it to 2 nights. Then there's Neymar, a brilliant footballer, but let's be honest, he does have a bit of a diva reputation. His PSG contract took the idea of a behaviour clause and turned it into an art form. Leaked reports claimed he had an ethics bonus worth around €375,000 a month just for following the club's code of conduct. That meant turning up on time, respecting teammates, not betting on matches, and, unbelievably, even applauding the fans after games. Imagine needing a clause telling you to clap for your own supporters, people who pay huge money, travel miles, and spend their weekends cheering for you. Who even comes up with that? Then again, this is the guy who was once spotted gambling during his daughter's birthday party, so maybe it makes sense after all. Some reports claimed he earned €200,000 per applause. PSG never confirmed it, of course, but if there's one player you can imagine getting paid to clap, it's Neymar. And this wasn't even his first set of bonuses. At Barcelona, he earned extra money for goals, trophies, and even a €425,000 reward if he ever won the Ballon d'Or. His contract looked more like a video game. Every achievement unlocked more cash, until it all went wrong. In 2020, Neymar was ordered to pay Barcelona €6.7 million after a Spanish court ruled against him in a dispute over a €43 million loyalty bonus. But if you think those clauses are wild, the next ones take luxury to a whole new level. Like Eto'o. When he joined Russian club Anzhi Makhachkala in 2011, he became the highest paid player in the world, earning around €20 million a year. But even that wasn't enough. There was one problem. The club was based in Dagestan and Eto'o didn't want to live there. Don't tell Khabib. So he asked to live in Moscow instead and commuted training by private jet. Not once a week, every single day. A 1,200-mile commute. Then there's Jesse Lingard, still somehow described as a promising young talent despite being in his 30s, Lingard! Who signed for FC Seoul in 2024. According to reports, his contract included a commercial clause giving him a percentage of revenue from ticket sales, merchandise and sponsorships on top of his $1.38 million annual salary. Exact numbers aren't known, but estimates suggest he earned a cool $300,000 to $600,000. Not massive, but still incredibly rare for a player contract. And speaking of rare clauses, the next one is completely one of a kind. Meet Giuseppe Reina. When he signed for Arminia Bielefeld in 1996, he asked for one simple thing: a new house for every year he played for the club. Unfortunately for him, he didn't specify what kind of house. So the club, being absolute geniuses, gave him 3 tiny houses, made entirely out of Lego. One for each year of his contract. Reina was understandably furious and he took the club to court. The case was settled privately and the details were never revealed, though it probably involved slightly more money than the price of 3 Lego houses. And if that wasn't ridiculous enough, along came Stefan Schwarz. In 1999, Sunderland signed a Swedish midfielder from Valencia. Schwarz had a keen interest in space tourism, and one of his advisors had reportedly secured him tickets for a commercial space flight planned for the early 2000s. Ambitious stuff, almost as ambitious as expecting people to like a video without being reminded. Sunderland panicked. They were worried he might leave the planet and never come back. So they added a clause: if Schwarz left Earth, his contract would be void. Yes, Sunderland literally banned one of their players from going to space. The club's chief executive later admitted it started as a joke, but they kept it in just in case. You genuinely couldn't make this up. Schwarz stayed on Earth, however, played for Sunderland until he retired, and never went to space. Though, maybe he should give Elon Musk a call. But if you think that's as strange as football gets, you're wrong. Because then we enter the world of folklore, the clauses that may or may not be true but are simply too good not to mention. Like Kazuko Honda, who supposedly demanded a bulletproof car and bodyguards when he joined Botafogo in 2020. Given Rio's reputation for crime, it honestly sounds quite reasonable. Or Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, where the story goes that Arsenal had to pay Southampton £10,000 every time he played 20 minutes or more. Allegedly, that's why he was often brought on late in games. Over 6 years, this supposedly added up to £1.4 million, and to be fair, it sounds believable. Then there's Neil Razor Ruddock, who reportedly had a clause fining him 10% of his wages if he went over 99.8 kilos. He was supposedly fined 8 times and eventually transfer listed. Ruddock has joked about himself, and given his build, fans believed every word. And speaking of food, we finish with Spencer Pryor. Rumour has it that when he signed for Cardiff, he agreed to eat the brain and testicles of a sheep as an initiation clause, to show respect for Welsh culture. He was given a choice between 2 sheep, Dolly, a black sheep, or Mimi, a white one. He chose Dolly. Later, it turned out to be a prank, the work of chairman Sam Hammam, who was famous for his practical jokes. At Wimbledon, he once locked a player in his office and hid the key in his underwear until the player agreed to sign. These stories are football's pub legends, half true, half nonsense, but all absolutely brilliant. If you have a story that would fit perfectly on this list, let us know in the comments. Oh, and check out this video next, we're pretty sure it's right up your alley. What are you waiting for? Go check it out. Seriously, and hit that like button on your way out.